This country was totally destroyed. 30 years of war, more than 200,000 troops trampling on, destroying everything. There was nothing in this country. It's only 21 years now. We're talking about an independent nation. How long can you take to build this nation from scrap or below scrap? Everything was destroyed, no roads, no electricity, no water, no health, no education, nothing was there. So it was a very difficult task for us. We can talk about achievements in the last 20 years, but these achievements are simply repairing what was damaged and creating a favorable ground for building a nation.
The United States is pleased with the adoption today of Resolution 2023, imposing additional sanctions on Eritrea.
It has been victorious in recent wars against not one but two superpowers. Eritrea is arguably the most isolated country in Africa. Bordered by Sudan in the west, Ethiopia in the south, and Djibouti in the southeast, the nation has a 1,200-kilometer Red Sea coastline across from Yemen in Saudi Arabia. At its southern tip lie the Bab el-Mandeb Straits, the strategic link between the Indian Ocean and the Mediterranean Sea, via the Red Sea and the Suez Canal. Defying U.S. hegemonic power, the country of 6 million half Christian and half Muslim is currently the subject of UN sanctions. But Eritrea has fought not just one but two superpowers, the US and the old Soviet Union. We came to Eritrea to investigate for ourselves why the United States continues to try and overthrow a government overseeing one of the fastest growing economies on Earth. The tank cemetery in the capital Asmara symbolizes how the nation of Eritrea has defied Western neoliberal economic, political, and cultural agendas. Here I am at the so-called tank cemetery in central Asmara, the capital of Eritrea, and perhaps nothing can demonstrate so vividly the victory of such a small country like Eritrea against massive superpower military forces, whether it be the USSR or the United States of America, via their proxies. Eritrea fought a 30-year war of independence against Soviet-backed Ethiopia from 1961. These pictures are from the more recent war against US-backed Ethiopia between 1998 and 2000, which claimed the lives of an estimated 70,000 out of a population of around 4 million at the time. The first man we talked to in Eritrea to find out about the country was the president. We thought it might be difficult getting access, but we had no problem in securing the interview. Isaias Afewerki is a veteran of the struggle. We spoke to him soon after international corporate media reported that he had died after an illness.
This country was totally destroyed. 30 years of war, more than 200,000 troops trampling on, destroying everything. There was nothing in this country. It's only 21 years now. We're talking about an independent nation. How long can you take to build this nation from scrap or below scrap? Everything was destroyed, no roads, no electricity, no water, no health, no education, nothing was there. So it was a very difficult task for us. We can talk about achievements in the last 20 years, but these achievements are simply repairing what was damaged and creating a favorable ground for building a nation.
During our interview with the president, he said we could go anywhere and film anything we wanted to in his country. The International Committee to Protect Journalists recently said that Eritrea was the worst country on earth to be a journalist. But we were told what to put in this documentary was at our own discretion. Education is one of the main priorities of Afewerki's ruling People's Front for Democracy and Justice Party. So he came and made an unannounced visit to a school in the capital to find out what goes on in the nation that is being built. Remember, President Obama and US policy is aimed at sanctioning everything you see here. I asked the class why they thought Eritrea gets such bad press.
Most countries hate Eritrea.
Why?
Maybe they're jealous.
Maybe they're jealous.
We talked to many students at the school, and all of them were ambitious. Most wanted to go to free universities. Some did complain about the slowness of the internet when accessing Facebook and other social networking sites, though. But I did want to ask the headmaster one question about why there were so few symbols of Eritrea's struggle for independence and freedom on the campus.
You don't have any statues for remembrance of the old students?
All the students, I have one. In my school, I have. There was one student who left to the battleground when we had a conflict with Ethiopia. How many years back, I don't know.
So we walked to the limits of the school grounds.
Just 2 years back, the students agreed to build a statue just like this for remembrance of the ones who passed in the struggle during the struggle time and during the what you call fight we had with Ethiopia. And a number of students and in fact ex-students of this school passed away, and it's a memory of these students that they built this, and it was their own initiative anyway.
For many around the world, Africa is synonymous with the prevalence of AIDS and HIV. It is an important part of education here. Under President Afewerki, HIV rates have halved. Today, the prevalence of HIV, according to the World Health Organization, is 0.8%. For neighboring US-backed Ethiopia, it's 2.4%. And for the richest country in Africa, South Africa, it's more than 18%. By comparison, HIV prevalence in the capital of the United States, Washington, D.C., is 3 times higher than that of Eritrea.
There is HIV spread in Eritrea, but the percentage is very low as 1%.
And Western doctors are wondering why, when all your surrounding countries are much higher rates.
What may surprise some viewers is that such successes in Eritrea have been accomplished without international charities or NGOs.
Helping people is not bad at all as an idea, but using this pretext and using the organizations created in that environment for their own ends is what makes it unacceptable to anyone. But for us, it's not a matter of whether we like or not like NGOs or humanitarian activities. You want to be independent? It's a very complex situation because you get trapped in it. We've gone through this process because it's food aid coming, and the population is deprived of even working. They will be waiting for handouts. Waiting for handouts for years cripples communities. And once communities are crippled, they are so dependent, it becomes an addiction. Governments are subsidized because of this food aid and humanitarian or so-called humanitarian aid. They're not engaged in real productive activities. They don't mobilize their own population. It's slavery, it's poverty, it's famine. You're sometimes being used for their PR exercises. People are brainwashed and manipulated to believe things that are not true, that are not for real. Finally, when crises like this come up, what do politicians do? They think they can still continue manipulate opinions in the street.
Again, without NGOs, we would see a network of brand new hospitals and medical centers throughout the country, from the highlands of the capital right down to the Red Sea coast. We went again, unannounced, to one of Eritrea's many free hospitals to see for ourselves why healthcare statistics in the country are such a source of optimism. According to the World Health Organization, life expectancy in Eritrea is 66. That would make it 7 years higher than US-backed aggressor Ethiopia, and around the same as the state of Mississippi in the richest country in the world. As for maternal mortality statistics, this is what a former revolutionary fighter, Lul Gabrib, now president of the National Union of Eritrean Women, told us.
The clinics, health centers are working on it. If it was 1,000 women of maternal mortality from 100,000 in 1995. Now it has gone to 450, which is one of the best achieved in the African continent, especially the sub-Saharan African countries. The child mortality rate has also reduced at a level which is not yet acceptable, because we want to have a zero level, but if you compare it with the Millennium Development Goals, we are on the right track.
Certainly no comparison to countries that have allowed international so-called humanitarian agencies to run their healthcare.
During the time of the independence, what the Eritrean government, or at that time the EPLF, inherited was a devastated infrastructure. So it has to start from scratch to provide service to the Eritrean population. So the first thing that was conducted was to formulate a national health policy.
You see, some governments would immediately invite Western agencies in to dictate the way the health system worked, as in so many African countries after independence.
No, because I think we have a different experience, even during the war for the liberation of the country.
Infrastructural development has been key to the development of Eritrea in the 21st century.
Do we need aid? We can't live with aid. We don't need aid. So we'll have to have an alternative. We need to develop our own capabilities. We need to go through a phase where we have to invest in a sustainable economy. We've made our choice from day one.
Key to Eritrea's development is treading a path that avoids statist bureaucracy, but still holds true to the values of the revolution. Unannounced again, we dropped in on a large private Eritrean-Italian textile factory named Dolce Vita, after the famous Fellini film about isolation in capitalist Italy. The working conditions would compete with anything found in the developed world, and I should repeat that this was a visit not organized by the government.
Well, I have to say, even I'm a bit amazed by this, because, of course, childcare as women get into the workforce has been a major news story in Europe. Apparently, this factory has creche facilities for working mothers, and you can see how miserable the children look. Obviously not happy at all with the quality of care. Eritrean private enterprise.
But what about US-sponsored UN sanctions aimed at destroying the Eritrean economy? Surely they must have an impact.
So sanctions have no effect on
No
this?
effect, because this is a private company. It's 100% owned by private owners. So no problem with sanctions, no problem exporting, and till now we are doing very good.
Not only do sanctions not affect the factory, they foster the Eritrean concept of self-sufficiency. Government infrastructural investment has made it possible for the business to be involved in the full textile cycle, from cotton plantations to finished shirts for export. We spoke to Stefano Bonazzi, who runs the factory in the capital of Asmara, about what it was like doing business in Eritrea, and given Western NGOs' concern for human rights, how the workers are treated.
Well, describe what a typical worker at your factory's day is and what...
8 hours. 8 hours we work every day, and we have two break, one in the morning, one in the afternoon, 15 minutes. We give some food like bread, tea, fruit, banana. We try to support, we try to help also with the nursery, you see, because we think the benefit, the people, is very important to support the life.
You're a businessman. Why do you think the West has such a problem with Eritrea then? And when you're in Italy and you say you do business with Eritrea, do people say, why?
When we start, I told you frankly, when we start, he said, where is Eritrea? The first question. And the second, you are crazy mind? One customer told us, why you go to Eritrea? Why you don't go to Egypt? It's very close to Italy. Why don't you go to Tunisia? It's very close.
That would have been Mubarak's Egypt.
Yeah. No, and he said, but Eritrea is not stable, it's the war, and we said, no, we think Eritrea for us, for Italy, for Italian people, is the historical colony. We are very close, biggest energy. Asmara is an Italian city. When we start, it's very, very hard. you don't believe to convince the customer to come to see. You don't believe. Nobody believe. Nobody want to come. You think no, you go to Eritrea, but it's the bomb, it's the war, it's not true. It's not true.